Hi, friends. Welcome to Embracing Your Season. I'm your host, Paige Klingenfield. Thank you so much for joining me again for this week for an all-new episode on the show. We have another amazing guest joining me today, but before I tell you about him, I want to tell you a little bit about Homeward, the ministry that supports this podcast. Homeward is a not-for-profit ministry reaching around the world to help families succeed. We'd love to invite you to consider becoming a partner in this exciting and life-changing outreach. Your prayers and financial support go directly to make a difference in the lives of families. Your gift of any amount will help Homeward continue to provide free podcasts like this one, friends, blog posts, the Homeward YouTube channel, and so many other family ministry outreaches. We believe you can reach out to parents and marriages and bring hope and healing that changes the trajectory of families for eternity. Go to homeward.com and click on the Donate Now button to find out more. Okay, so back to the show. But before we introduce the guests, I want to check in with my producer, Mike Segovia. Mike, how are you today?
I'm doing good, Paige. How are you doing?
Well, today has been an interesting day for me. I'll be honest. I don't know if Kim ever does this, but the home maintenance, I feel like I am so much better at it than reality. Has Kim ever done something like that where she tried to fix something?
Yes.
And it didn't work out so well?
Yes, she has.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for not shaming her, by the way. My husband would be like, oh, let me tell you all the times.
I can't do it because she's going to be listening.
She's the best, but let me tell on myself. Okay, so obviously, listeners, I have 2 teen daughters with very long hair, so that means we shed all the time. We plug up drains. Well, that means we also plug up the washing machine. This has happened twice now, friends, so we are equipped at acknowledging. We're not equipped to fix. I wish we were. That would help us out so much in this story. So I go and I look at the washing machine and I'm like, well, I got this. There's a plug at the bottom. I will totally undo this plug and I will unplug it from here because that's obviously what the problem is. So I start to unplug this gauge, right? And a little bit of water trickles out. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, it needs to drain first. I can understand that. Now, this is the part, listeners, where you are not allowed to judge. What is that phrase now, that trend where you can listen but don't judge? Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
So don't judge, but it's so close to the ground that I couldn't put a bucket in it. But I was like, it needs to drain. I know this. So I put a cookie sheet with a lip on it because I'm like, surely there is only just a tiny bit of water there, right? Like,
can't be that much. Can't be that much.
See, thank you, Meg. That was my rationale. So I open up this gauge. Friends, it was a tsunami of water. I mean, so much so that I can't even put the plug back in. So I'm trying to put this plug back in. I'm looking around and it is flooding my laundry room. My cat, of course, is just staring at me like, what you're doing. I'm home alone and I'm like, I don't know what to do. But what I do is I plug the vent because, of course, that's going to prevent the water from going to the basement, right? So I did something, right? Okay, so I finally get it plugged up. I run downstairs to my girls' room where there's a billion towels. Anybody else's kids use 5 towels per shower? Yeah, that's the way it is in our house. So I grab the towels and all of a sudden I hear dripping in the basement. And I'm like, oh, Lord Jesus, please do not let this be what I think it is. Friends, it is pouring out of the vent from my ceiling. Tons of water. And I was like, oh, that's probably not good. So I run upstairs and I put the towels down and I text my husband. I said, hun, I got good news and bad news. Good news is I got all the water out of the washing machine, so there's no more water in it. I said, bad news, I flooded the laundry room and it's through the ceiling in the basement. So have fun with that when you get home. Oh my gosh. Repairman is coming on Monday, by the way, friends. Yes. This is my failure.
What? Paige, what was his reaction?
I think it was the emoji with the hand, like the palm, the face palm.
Yeah.
That was literally his response. So I don't know what I'll receive when I get home, but I'm going to greet him with a smile and say, I love you, honey. Oh my gosh.
A big smile, a big kiss, Paige.
Yes. Welcome home, babe. Like all the things. So it's interesting how we want to fix things, but really We
totally.
shouldn't.
But you
You
tried.
know what? Thank
Isn't
you.
that the
Thank you,
you
Mike.
tried.
I appreciate that.
You did the best you could. It didn't turn out the way you wanted
Uh-huh.
to, but you
You
tried.
know,
So
you're
I
right.
give you props for
Thank
that.
you. I
Yeah.
appreciate the shout out. And I will tell Ryan that you said that. That will hopefully soften the
Please.
blow a little bit.
Yes. Absolutely.
Well, talking about water, our guest today is actually someone that works with the water crisis around the world about
Okay.
clean drinking waters. So,
Paige, this is great. And I know our guest today is a great one, Matt Arnett. Why don't you tell us a little bit about him?
yeah, so Matt serves as the community pastor and director of Business on Mission and Church on Mission for the Bucket Ministry, a nonprofit committed to sharing the love of Jesus while providing clean water solutions to communities in need worldwide. He is also deeply passionate about engaging children in missions, believing that they are not just recipients of ministry, but active participants in God's work. Is that so great? He has even said it this way: we're not just ministering to children, but empowering them to take part in God's mission in the world. Yeah, this is going to be a great conversation, Mike. I'm really glad I get the opportunity to talk to Matt.
Oh, absolutely, Paige. This is going to be great because you and I, a little while back, talked about kids in the mission field since you just got back from one.
That's
So
right.
this is going to be great.
Yeah.
And you know what? Let's get to it.
Awesome.
Let's get to your conversation now with Matt Arnett on this edition of Embracing Your Season.
Okay, well, Matt, thanks so much for joining me today. I look forward to having this conversation. I'm really excited to learn more about what you do.
Paige, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, let's start out with the Bucket Ministry. Like, what is it and what led you to be a part of the work they do?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Bucket Ministry is a holistic mission organization that is, our mission is to share God's love through the gift of clean, safe drinking water. And so we believe, and it is our just our fundamental, what gets us up in the morning is that people around the world deserve to have access to clean water. And that's a basic human right. But even more than that, we believe that everybody deserves the opportunity to know the love of God and to experience the fullness of life that comes through a relationship with Jesus Christ. And so we get the opportunity to tangibly help people through the gift of a clean water filter. But even more importantly than that, what that does is it builds a relationship that gives us the privilege and the opportunity to share the gospel and to make disciples all around the world.
I love that. I love being the tangible hands and feet of Jesus. And then that analogy of you're not only just giving water, but you're giving living water. Like, how powerful is that message? And then the gospel message, because then they're able to listen because you're providing to the needs of their actual physical body, and then you provide to the spiritual needs. What a cool mission you guys have.
Yeah, and that's actually how I got connected to the ministry in the beginning. Was I was serving on staff at a church where I had a lot of volunteers that worked under me, and I kept hearing stories of my volunteers that were engaged in this water ministry where they were going on these trips. And as they would talk about the work that they were doing, they would just explain about this global water crisis and the need for clean water, and how they were using this really simple filter to provide life-saving water. But in the midst of that, they would explain how they used this as a tool to illustrate the gospel. And before I ever even saw the filter work, I heard them share about how the dirty water that was making people sick and hurting people and was ultimately killing people was similar to the sin that we have in our lives that is harming us, that is hurting us, that is killing us. It's separating us from God. And this filter was taking on the brokenness of the water, and it was allowing clean water to pass through, and how Jesus takes our sin on himself and gives us living water, as we know from John 4 with the woman at the well. This image, like I said, before I ever even saw the filter work, I have seen and used so many different evangelism tools, and there are some great ones out there, but I had never seen something that made such a life-changing difference, but then provided an image for eternal life in the way that this filter does. And so I started investigating that a little bit, got connected, and God opened up an opportunity for me to come alongside and serve as the pastor here at the ministry. And it has been incredible to get to be a part of that, because like I said, I've never seen God soften hearts through an evangelism tool in the way that he uses this filter.
I love that. And I love that it's such a visual that even kids can discuss it as well.
Absolutely.
It's easy for them to translate that to their peers and worldwide, right? That transcends language, which is so cool as well. Well, speaking of kiddos, you wrote an article called Kids on Mission, not just ministry to kids, but ministry through kids. I would love for you to just explain a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so at the Bucket Ministry, we have a kids club program where we get the opportunity to serve children globally who are recipients of the water filters. Like I said, we have a holistic approach to ministry, so that includes serving the person wholly, but also specifically families and households. So our ministry model is to each home, and that includes not just the adults in that home, but the children as well. And that translates into the partnerships we have in the United States with churches and how we engage with children in churches. And so one of the major ways that we get to connect with local churches is through the children's ministry programs. And one of the things that we have seen as we've been able to do that is that we get the opportunity to talk with these kids in the ministry in different ways that maybe that they're used to, and so we are able to connect them with other kids around the world. We're able to use the filter as a gospel sharing tool, even to children in the United States, and so what this as we've developed this and started looking at this, one of the things that it has really opened up is the importance of involving children in the ministry, in the mission that we're doing. And so I see the mission of God as something that is participatory, that we have to be involved in, that requires belief, it requires action. And so as we are raising our children, as we are making disciples in our own homes, I believe that it's absolutely essential to invite them into this missional way of seeing the world, and that requires us to engage them in the work that God is doing. And so I love that mindset, and even in my own home, as my kids, I've got 3 sons, and as they are growing up, and as they are their own faith is growing, it's an absolute essential part of them understanding what it looks like to be a follower of Christ, what it looks like to be a participant in the church, and what it looks like to be part of God's mission in this world.
So yeah, let's lean into that a little bit more of then what are some specific ways that even we can empower our kids to take the lead in missions?
Yeah. So I think it's a great question. And, I think there are a number of ways that we can engage in this with our own children. And so maybe on a very basic level, we need to expose our kids to mission.
That's good.
And so there's a great quote by Emil Brunner that I love about mission. And he says that the church exists by mission as a fire exists by burning. And as you unpack that a little bit, you ask the question, what does that mean? Well, what does it mean for a fire to exist by burning? If a fire is not burning, what is it? Well, the answer is I don't know, but it's probably not a fire. And so in the same way, the church is designed to be engaged with God's mission. And so if a church is not engaged in mission, then what is it? Well, the same answer. Maybe I don't know, but it's probably not living out its fullness as a church. And so in the same way, as members of the church, as the church living in our home, in our communities, what does it look like to invite our kids into that? And part of that is exposing them to to the world. And I don't mean that in a making them experience the brokenness and the hardship fully. I really do believe that as parents, part of our role is to protect our kids, but there is brokenness in this world. And if we are not shepherding and guiding our children through those experiences, then the world certainly will provide them a narrative to live into. And so as parents, it's our job to help widen our kids' perspective and help them to see the world. And part of that is through mission, like, for example, in my context, the global water crisis. Where I live in Texas, there is not a water crisis. Our kids, if they're thirsty, they're able to go to a refrigerator, they're able to fill their cup of water, they can get a bottle of water. And so they're not aware that globally there's over 785 million people in the world that if they get thirsty, if they're looking for something to drink, they don't have that same opportunity. They don't have that same hope. And so there's a piece of this that's just exposing to the need and to the brokenness of the world. And so beyond that, I believe it's our job as parents to equip our kids and to equip them with the gospel, but that not just being verses that they can recite or a plan of salvation that they can preach at their friends, but actually equip them with the story, with the good news, with the experience of what it looks like to follow Jesus and to be part of this community of redeemed people that get to experience the abundant life that Jesus has for us. And so what does it look like for us to equip our kids with the gospel? Like I shared a minute ago, having this visual image of a water filter, of dirty water being transformed into living water. And that's something that's a sticky image. Whenever we get to go and talk to children's ministry, I'll always share that image with the people that we're serving, of like, hey, and I've got I know that a lot of people are listening online, they don't have the visual, but for those that are watching, it gives a good reason to check out the YouTube channel, right, and get to see the video. Right. But I've got an image of some dirty water here, and so I'll talk to the kids about how, hey, like, would you want to drink this? Like, you see, I've got some lake water here from a lake outside. Yeah, it's nasty. I made sure I got some extra mud, but this dirty water is like the sin that's in our lives. And I'll ask them, hey, would anybody want to drink this? And of course they don't. Why? Well, because it's got dirt in it, it's got bugs in it, it's, and they'll always say that. But even more importantly than that, we know that with water, it's not the things that we can see that make us sick that's in the water, it's the things we can't see, the bacteria, the diseases, the things like that. And so I wouldn't want to drink that. Well, in the same way, we all have dirtiness. We have sin in our life that's harming us, that's hurting us. And then I've got this filter that's screwed onto this water bottle that's going to do the work to remove that brokenness. And so, again, if you've got the video, you can see the difference here between the water that has passed through the filter. And I'll ask the kids the same question. Would you drink this? Well, yeah. Why? Because it's clean, it's safe, it's healthy. And whenever we talk to kids about this, and even more than that, obviously, if I'm going to make the water, I have to drink it. So I'm going to drink a little bit.
Test.
And it tastes good, right? It's healthy, it's safe, it's good for life. We hear that phrase all the time, that water is life. And it's true. And just like you experienced with your washing machine, though, whenever water is doing what it shouldn't be doing, it can cause great harm, right? But water, whenever it's living water, whenever it's safe and healthy, it is life. It brings life. And so as kids see this image, it gives them an opportunity that as they're going and then they're living their lives and they're sharing with their friends and they're going through their own experiences, that they can think back to, well, that dirty water, like, it's harmful. And when I do things, whenever I sin, when I break the relationship with God, like that's harmful. It's hurting me. It's killing me. And the thing that Jesus promises, the hope that I have in Jesus, is not just eternal life, but it's abundant life that I get to experience here through living water. And so we equip our kids with a gospel that is true and that is real and is something that's tangible for them, that they can experience, that's not, again, not just a set of things that they can say, that they can argue with their friends, but that shows and demonstrates the abundant life that we have through our faith. And so we're able to equip and do that. The third piece of it that I would just say is encourage families, specifically encouraging family discipleship, and recognizing that the primary disciple maker for our kids should be us. Mm-hmm. You know, in the same way that it's not whenever I think about my kids and their education, we send them off to school, but the primary person that's responsible for my kids' education is me. In the same way, the primary person that's responsible for the discipleship of my kids is me. It's not the church's job. It's not the pastor's or the children's pastor's job to disciple my kids. That's a great tool. It's a great resource. It's a great thing to be part of community. But it's my job. God has entrusted me with that stewardship of that relationship. And you look at the way that Jesus made disciples. There were a lot of people that interacted with Jesus. There were a lot of people that heard the preaching of Jesus and were able to see the miracles of Jesus. But then there was a really, really small group of people that got to spend a great deal of time with Jesus. And it was an even smaller group that really had that intimate relationship with Jesus. And we as parents get those formative years where we get to be with them and spend time with them and shape them. And how we do that is going to greatly impact how they live into the world and the humans that they become as adults. And so it's really important for us to encourage that family discipleship aspect, that parents take the responsibility to be the primary disciple makers for their kids. And then finally, with that is that we empower our kids and we send them out. Because again, as much as we get this season of time with our kids, the reality is that they grow up and they gain autonomy and they will go out and live in the world. And so I love what Psalm 127:4 says whenever it talks about how children are like arrows in the hands of a warrior. And that the imagery of that verse is so powerful to me, because when you think about it, you think about how valuable and how powerful arrows are, but by themselves, they're not much good for anything. They look pretty, right? Our arrows have power when they're sent out. And so they require a bow, they require an archer. And so it is our job as parents to be the ones that are empowering and sending out our kids to do the work, to live into this world and to be disciples of Jesus.
Oh, that is so good. So expose, equip, encourage, and empower. Those are such good points. So for me, I'm thinking through just like my own kids and wanting them to be both missional, local, and global. And it's so funny because globally, I can let them go and they have a boldness in sharing the gospel. Like they have this, it's truly serving one another. But when we get back here in our home, in our comfort area, and locally, it seems like they kind of lack that boldness. They lack that ability or desire to really step out in that. Do you have any suggestions on how parents can really help encourage their kids to see a local missional need and step into that?
Sure. Yeah, and I think it's so natural, right? And there's a million reasons for that. We do short-term mission trips, and I get to see it all the time with kids, but it's true with adults too. We tend to be way more bold and fearless whenever we're outside of our context, and I think there's a few reasons for that. one, that's your job. If you go on a week-long mission trip, you know that you're going to do that task. And so there's this urgency and this weight on that role. There's also accountability. So you know that when you get home, what are people going to ask you? Well, what did you do? What happened? And so there's this weight of it. But there's also something about nobody there knows you. And so it's safer, even though you may be across the world, even though things are different, there's new smells and sights and tastes. In some ways it's safer. You don't have people that know you deeply. There aren't people that know your cracks and know the brokenness inside of you. And so it's incredibly natural. But that doesn't give us a pass to not be missional locally, right? And so we can take some of those things that allow us to be more effective internationally, and we can implement them in our own lives. And so what are some of the things that we talk about is, well, you've got an objective, a missional objective whenever you go. What does it look like for you to give your kids a missional objective? Every day, as we live really close to my kids' school, and so I take them to school in the mornings, and we have this conversation. We pray in the car, but before we pray, we'll have that conversation of, hey, who is it? Do you have any kids in your class that need to be seen today, that need to be loved, that need to be cared for today? Are there any conversations that you're looking for? What is it? Is there anything that you're anxious about? Do you have, and some days it's, well, I've got a test coming up, or, whatever it is that's on their hearts and their minds. I think that's one of the things that's so important with kids is you don't have to curate their experience. You don't have to force them to think. Some days the things that we pray about maybe seem very silly, or maybe seem like they're not important, but they're so important to my boys. And if I take what they believe is seriously, then they give me permission to speak into the things that I really want them to grow in. And so giving them that missional objective whenever they go into their schools, and then giving an account afterwards whenever they come home from schools. It's so hard for us as parents to, what'd you do at school today? No, nothing. Yeah. It's so hard. So how do we draw out specific questions and ask them the same questions over and over so that they're ready for them? Hey, this morning you said that, you talked about your friend that was crying yesterday. Did you have a conversation with her? Were you able to find out what was going on? Getting specific into the details of our kids' lives and having them give that report and that account, and doing that as a family. And so, our oldest son, setting the way for that for our younger boys as they grow and they learn and they see their brother lead. And so giving them the opportunities for that. Beyond that, too, at the Bucket Ministry, we talk about this filter, and a lot of times in our office we'll use the language that we don't talk about it as a filter. We talk about it as a tool. It's a tool that ultimately provides a resource. It opens a door. It allows for a relationship, and it gives us permission and an opportunity to share God's love. And so whenever I'm talking to kids, one of the things that I always try to highlight is asking them, okay, so at the Bucket Ministry, this filter is our tool, but each and every one of you have a tool. What is it that God has uniquely equipped you with, given you interest in, given you passion for? Are you part of a dance club, or do you play a sport? Do you love video games? What is it that you are so passionate about that God has hardwired in you to be excited and gifted in? And in the same way that we use this tool to share God's love through the filter, how can you use the ways that God has uniquely wired you to show God's love? We believe that all people are created in God's image, but it's not the same part of the image. Each of us look different. We have different skills and we have different things. And so how can I illustrate the image of God that he has imprinted on me to show his light in the world? And so how do we empower our kids? And if you can give that to your kids, hey, we're not asking you to go out and preach to the atheist in your class. We're not asking you to be have an apologetics conference in your school and to argue and defend your faith. What does it look like to show the love of God on your soccer team? What does it look like to be a friend? What does it look like to encourage them in ways that God has encouraged you? And it takes the burden and the pressure off of that. And all of a sudden, we talk about the gospel all the time and we use that word. And sometimes I think we forget that gospel means good news. And it's not just good news, again, for eternity. It's good news for our lives right now. And so how do we help our kids see that the gospel is actually good news for their lives? And how then can they go out and show that in a way that their friends that are far from God, their friends that are existing in this hurting and broken world, we don't have to convince people that this world is broken. We all experience it. So how do we equip our kids to see and identify the brokenness in the world and help their friends, help the people that they're engaging with, see that Jesus has given an answer to that?
Gosh, that's like a mic drop. There it is, friends. I mean, there was so much value in that statement. Man, I would just, before we conclude, I would love for you to just give some encouragement to families, especially parents out there that really want to make their family culture missional. So what is it? One encouragement to leave them with today?
Yeah, again, I think that more than any of the rest of it, it's like so many other things in parenting. You don't have to have all the right words. You don't have to have read all the right books. You're going to make mistakes. But the best thing that you can do to help your kids live missional lives is to live out an example where they see it in you every single day. And again, part of that means that your kids also see where you fall short, where you fail, where you fall on your face. And that's those moments are just as teachable and sometimes even more teachable than the times that we have success. Yep. But if we want our kids, the discipleship to Jesus, like another word that is kind of gaining some popularity is just the understanding of apprenticeship to Jesus, of following Jesus, of mimicking, of understanding. Well, what better way for our kids to learn how to follow Jesus than to look at us and to follow in our steps? And so I would just say that as parents, what are some small ways? For me, I'm already driving my kids to school, so it doesn't take much to focus that conversation and to ask some questions, to say a quick prayer. And then again, just doing that day after day, time after time, building that muscle memory, all of a sudden, my 9-year-old came home not too long ago and was sharing with me that he was having this faith conversation with two kids in his school, one of them that is Muslim and one of them that's Jewish, and the three of them were just talking about their faith backgrounds and differences and what they believed. And I just found myself thinking, wow, like at 9 years old, I was not having interfaith dialogue.
It's incredible. Yeah.
And also I didn't equip him to do that. I didn't tell him to do that. I never gave him that job. But whenever I started asking him about how that conversation came up, he said it's, because we live out our faith here at home. And I was asking them about why they believe what they did. They were able to enter into that conversation. And so I think so much of it with our kids, it's much more important who you are and how you live than what you say. And so live out, follow Jesus, love your kids fully, and it will amaze you how God shapes their hearts to follow him as well.
Such a good word, and really a good challenge, right? Being reminded that we are disciples of Jesus first, therefore we need to live as he does, and that will trickle down in the example that we show our kids, both in the mistakes. Let's shout out the mistakes. Yes. Absolutely teachable moments, but man, we can learn a lot from one another. So Matt, thank you so much for joining me today and having a conversation. I'm so excited about what the Bucket Ministry does and what you're doing there. Thank you for being the hands and feet of Jesus and really providing an opportunity for all of us to contribute to helping people around the world. So where can people find your information as well as the Bucket Ministry information?
Love it, Paige. Thank you. Yes, if to get more information about the Bucket Ministry, you can search us, just thebucketministry.org. We're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and would love to get to build relationships and connect people with this work.
Oh, fabulous. Well, again, thanks so much for joining me today. And listeners, thank you so much for participating. Well, friends, I hope that you totally enjoyed the conversation with Matt today. I know I did. I mean, I was taking notes. I have some takeaways. But before I share some of my takeaways, I want to invite on the show my producers, Mike Segovia and Ariel Daves. Guys, thanks so much for joining me. What were some of the things that you guys were really drawn to in the conversation? Ariel, especially you. Like, girl, you're a missionary kid. Tell us a little bit about that.
I did grow up a missionary kid, Paige, and I was in Costa Rica, in Panama. You know, my parents are still in Panama, and they've got a farm out there, and they're working with indigenous kids and the community there. They're transforming that community, and what Matt's doing with water, my dad's doing with food. And
That's
so
incredible.
it was really incredible just to like grow up around that and to just to be a part of the community there and be the hands and feet of Jesus. So I could relate very much with what he was talking about, especially just being a part of something that's bigger than yourself, that's bigger than what you can do yourself, partnering with other people and spreading the message of Jesus. You know, when we first moved to the mission field, Paige, we actually took a missions trip with the local church there to Pennsylvania. Like, we
No
took a
way.
missions trip to the States and went,
Wow.
what? Like, usually people go to other countries,
That's
but
right.
we went to the US and I went, well, I guess everyone needs Jesus, don't
Oh,
they?
yeah. Oh, yeah. United States. We need some Jesus.
We
There's no
need some Jesus.
doubt. Wow.
Yeah, but spreading the message of hope is so important for people, Paige.
Mhm.
And I very much enjoyed the conversation that you had with Matt today. I really loved it.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
Mike, some of your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that Matt said, I got my notes here. He was talking about um, that we need to widen our kids' perspective to let them know what's
Yeah,
happening in our world. And Paige, if I heard the number correctly, 785 million people in the world do not have water to drink and to use.
that's
So,
crazy.
so through this filtering system, it's awesome. All the things that that him and his team is doing, and so you can take that dirty water and have it transformed into clean drinking water. But our kids need to know what's happening in the world. Sometimes, Paige, I feel like we just go to church and then we have Sunday night youth group, and it's great. They hear the gospel, they have pizza, they play some games, but to let them know what's happening in the world so they can decide if they want to get involved as they get older and go on a mission trip, as you and I talked about on an episode a few weeks ago, and or to pray just so they can know that the world is more than just a church and their youth group and your home outside of
Yeah,
that box that
yeah.
they're in. I think that's really important, Paige, that we show our kids a wider perspective of the world.
Yeah, because we can get stuck in our bubbles, right?
Yes,
Like that's
yes.
one of the benefits I think of technology and social media and being able to be on there is we can see different perspectives of the world, but that's still biased, that's still filtered. Like there are still some angles and ways that we don't get to see all of the things as you indicated. So
Yeah.
having these numbers just makes it real. And us in the DR, for instance, a lot of the places that we went to, the main ailment physically was due to the drinking water because it was not clean, because there was bacteria and germs in that water, and that impacts the whole health, the whole family. And so, yeah, I totally get what you're saying there as well. And so some of my takeaways, which I just love this conversation, I was taking notes like crazy. One of the things that I told Matt afterwards offline was like, I'm going to implement this today. Missional objective daily. Like, I know I talk to my kids about, I want you to be a good person. I want you to do decent in school, show your effort, like make good friends and be kind. But like, what is their mission? Because I believe that we have been made on purpose and for a purpose, that we have been called by Jesus to bring the good news to the world. How can we translate that to our kids so they can see this in everyday interactions? And Matt was talking about that. How can you be the best friend that you can be? How can you be the best soccer player bringing joy and happiness and just contentment onto the team when everyone else might be struggling with a loss? Like, how can you represent Jesus the best way that you can be? These are things that we can translate for our kids, even in elementary, where they don't necessarily have the words or ideas of how to translate missional living into their day-to-day. And so I thought, man, that's such a great suggestion and something that we can do daily. But it's also, friends, a good challenge for us, is it not? We have a missional objective every single day. We have all been called to share the gospel. What does that look like? That even means sharing the good news through our behaviors, through the fruits of the Spirit, with our barista, making our caramel lattes in the morning, right? Even if we're in the middle of traffic. I don't know about you guys, but I am not always Jesus when I am in the traffic light. Luckily, no one can hear my commentary. Maybe that's, see, it's just between Jesus and I. But again, that's a heart posture that I need to work on. So just reminding myself, I have a mission. I have objective. What is that daily? The other thing that I really loved is also helping kids recognize that they've been uniquely designed, and then that is going to be their tool to have conversations, or even just creating an opportunity to have conversations with people. So he talked about video games. Like, I have a kiddo that loves video games, that loves connecting with his friends via the video games. That can be an avenue then to create opportunities to have conversations. My daughter is on the dance team. So how can she be Jesus and be such a good person showing the fruits of the Spirit on the dance team? Like, all of these things are applicable, but it's just helping our kids understand their unique design and how God has called them to a purpose. So those are just some interesting takeaways that I have today in our conversation.
That's awesome. This was such a great interview, Paige. And man, people out there, if you're missing this show, you got to listen to it. I'm telling you, this is such good stuff. Every Tuesday, Paige, this is great because you're not one to say, hey, Mike, let's just re-air something. You want new episodes every
all the time.
Tuesday. And that's
Yes.
where we're delivering new episodes, new guests, Paige jumping on, doing her solo show. Sometimes I join her, but it's great material. So if you listen, and if you listen on Apple Podcasts, please give us a rate and a review. It really helps us to know what we're doing, how we're doing, and all that kind of good stuff. So
Absolutely.
just another great interview today, Paige.
I agree. I think the Lord is blessing it, and we can be changed and challenged. And so, listeners, I just want to thank you so much for listening today and to this episode. But as Mike said, continue to tune in, subscribe, so that way you never miss an episode. It gets downloaded automatically onto your phone. And as you are in that carpool line, and you are taking kids to soccer practice, you have the opportunity to be encouraged and equipped and to be reminded of what your purpose is in this world. So if you have any feedback or guests you would like to see on the show, I would love to hear from you. Why don't you email me at paigeklingenpeel@gmail.com. Be sure to tune in again next time for another great interview on the next edition of Embracing Your Season.